I've learned more about myself than anything else, like through just these, unconventional relationship styles, because you really have to be secure in yourself as a person, your worth as a person, because otherwise you're just constantly going to be making comparisons and putting yourself down, and instead of, just appreciating other people for how they are different from you.
Welcome to Normalizing Non-Monogamy, the podcast where we interview incredible people from across the entire spectrum of non-monogamy to hear their fascinating stories. We strive to bring guests on the show who have a healthy approach to non-monogamy. However, it's important to remember that everyone does it a little bit differently, and the views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect our own.
Additionally, we produce this show for entertainment purposes only. Please be aware that we aren't doctors or therapists. Consult the medical professional for anything regarding your health that you might learn about on the show. Enjoy!
Welcome to episode 173. We're Finn and Emma, and today we have an amazing conversation with Leanne.
Yeah, Leanne reached out to us actually back in the beginning of the year and had a great conversation with her. She's actually one of our youngest, if not our not our youngest, but one of our youngest guests ever.
Close, yeah.
And coming to us all the way from the UK. So she's only 22, just out of university. And I mean, it's an amazing conversation. She's been exploring non-monogamy since she was, non-monogamy. I don't know. We're recording in the car and somebody drove by and I got distracted. We're parked. We're not driving and recording. Anyway, she's been doing this since she was 17 and it's a fascinating story. And also if you listened a couple months back to our episode with Zach, where he was talking about the Yale Orgy Club, Leanne has experience with an orgy club at a different university. And we've actually got a little bit of an update on something I talk about at the end of this episode. So stick around to the outro for an update on some collaboration stuff we're doing that's coming up. So that was kind of a spoiler. But anyway, thank you, Leanne, for reaching out. We're super excited. And she runs the blog Polyphilia. And all of the links for her stuff are in our show notes at normalizingnonmonogamy.com or in your podcast player. You can click directly to them and learn about where you can find all of the great stuff she's working on. So again, thank you, Leanne, for all the work and for putting everything out there. It was great having you on the show.
Yes, thank you. Before we jump into your interview, of course, normal things, we have announcements. The first up is our next virtual meet and greet is April 17th. That's a Saturday this time from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern or 6 to 8 Pacific. But we'd love to have you join us. These are open to anyone. They're a blast. You have 2 hours to meet a bunch of different people in different Zoom rooms and have a talking point, and it's super fun. So they're $10 to join. To sign up, go to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, and click on the meet and greet tab.
Or go in the show notes of your podcast player. There are direct links there to sign up. And yeah, easy.
And also, we want to do a huge shout out thank you to our Patreon members. We love this community and we're so thankful for each one of you who joins. A few announcements for our upcoming Patreon call dates. We have our monthly Q&A actually tonight for March will be March 24th. We have one at 9 p.m. Eastern and another one at 9 p.m. Pacific. And then we also have we'll have another one later in April. We have women's calls and men's calls, group calls. The next women's call is April 21st. And the men's group call is April 20th. Again, information on our website. Just click on the Patreon button and you'll find out more.
And how to join. And just a quick update on that as well. Emma said a huge thank you to everybody. I want to echo that and also say we've gone over 160 members.
Woohoo!
And growing. So thank you again. And it's an awesome community. We hope to see you there. Check it out. The last thing we want to talk about is Power of Witness. We did this series back at the beginning of the year. It was a 6-part series, collaboration with Catherine. It was basically group coaching, and it was fantastic. We've gotten so much amazing feedback on it. She is running a Power of Witness cohort that is not going to be on our show, that is private. So you could join that. There are links in the show notes, again, how to join, how to save a couple bucks, and it's an affiliate link, so we get a little bit of kickback, so it supports the show.
So the deadline to sign up for is April 4th at midnight, and her next cohort will start on April 12th. So go again, like Finn said, the links are in our show notes. Use those. You get a discount for signing up and supporting the show.
And if you haven't yet listened, go back and listen to Power of Witness to see what it's all about.
Yep, there's 6 episodes.
So yeah, it was fantastic. And thank you to anybody who was a part of it that's listening. Y'all are awesome.
Yes.
So thank you.
Very much so. And finally, don't forget you can find us over at normalizingnonmonogamy.com. Click on the Contact Us page, send us a voicemail, send us an email. If you have any questions or thoughts, we'd love to hear from you. You can also
read them all, listen to them all, and respond to every single one.
We do. And you can also find podcast show notes on our website as well, along with a bunch of other information. So go check out our website.
And we'll see you after we talk to Leanne.
Let's go. Well, welcome, Leanne, to the show. We're super excited to have you here. And thank you so much for reaching out. I know it's a lot earlier here than it is for you today, but we're really excited to talk to you. And I guess we'd love to start with having you introduce yourselves for the listeners. I mean, we know a little bit about you, but not a lot.
Yeah, so I'm Leanne. As you can probably tell from my accent, I'm based in the UK. I'm 22, and I've been basically doing polyamory, ethical non-monogamy, since I was 17.
Wow.
Yeah.
and what was the? I mean, I guess we were like 18 and 19, so we weren't too far behind you when we started. But like, what was your exposure to that got you interested at such a young age?
Correction, we were 19 and 20.
Okay, fine. I felt like I was 18 still, I was young at heart.
Good. I just had to correct you.
Yeah, so it's an interesting one because so I was in one monogamous relationship when I was 16. And then and that was fine. I didn't, I just started dating, so I didn't really know much about monogamy, never mind polyamory. But basically, about like 9 months into the relationship, I found out that he was cheating on me. And he had been cheating on, like, he told me, he like kind of fessed up about it. It wasn't like I found out. I think he just felt guilty about it and then told me about it. But he had been cheating on me with a guy for the past 3 months. And obviously that really hurt me. And, when we were having conversation, I was like, why would you do this? We love each other so much, etc. He was like, oh, I've always kind of, I'm bisexual. I've always kind of wanted to explore my sexuality, and that type of thing. And I was just like, I said this to him at the time. I said, if you wanted to explore with guys, you could have just asked me and I would have said yes. Like, you didn't have to lie to me. And he just kind of looked at me like I had just grown a second head. And like, that was when I realized that, like, I didn't really like think like everyone else when it came to relationships. So like, I think that was like the moment when I first like twigged that, maybe I was like a little bit different, but I didn't think much of it at the time. And then my second relationship, which was like a year later, obviously, after that whole thing, we didn't stay together for that long. My second relationship, like, we went long distance, about 4 months in, because like we'd finished school and like I was going back, I was going to visit my family and he was going to study in America. And so it was just a logical step to open up the relationship because we talked about it and we were both like, yeah, I mean, we love each other. We're pretty secure. It kind of, and I said to him, I was like, you're starting university, like freshers week. I know it's going to be like a ton of fun. And I don't want you to miss out on those experiences by like, being tied down to a partner, because I can imagine that would suck. So I was like, like, I'm very happy for you to go and like, just have fun. And yeah, and I was like very encouraging and yeah, it just made sense to me. And so, yeah, like that was kind of my first experience with non-monogamy. But at the time, it was very much a like open relationship rather than a polyamorous relationship. So it was, sexually open, like romantically monogamous, if you will. But yeah, and like that went pretty well for me. Like I barely feel like any jealousy. Like I'm one of those rare types who doesn't really feel it that much. And so, I was always very compulsive. He would tell me about like these girls that he was having a good time with. And I'd be like, yeah, that's amazing, But like, yeah, but then I started seeing other people and then he had a massive problem with it. And so like, yeah, so that, like it was an interesting kind of thing to navigate, but like that didn't work out for like a bunch of other reasons. But like, yeah, so since then, every relationship I've had has been some form of open. Okay. But my current relationship is my first like properly kind of polyamorous one, because I think just along the line, I was like, why am I like, feelings, like, if they happen, they happen. And, if I'm secure in the relationship, like, why does it matter? It's not taking anything away from me. Attraction's normal.
Right.
And I just felt like it was fine to just be like authentic and honest about our feelings instead of like holding them back, wondering like what could have been with this other person, kind of just, exploring that curiosity instead of just like sitting there and like wondering and possibly resenting your partner for holding you back. And so my current relationship was my first polyamorous one. We met in November 2018, and we've been seeing each other and like other people since then. So yeah, that's kind of my whole timeline, basically.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I was curious, growing up, did you ever have non-monogamous relationships or other relationship styles modeled for you?
No, because I've only been in the UK for the past 6 years. Before that, I was in Hong Kong. So I grew up in Hong Kong. And yeah, Hong Kong is quite a metropolitan, international city, but I think at the end of the day, it is more conservative. And, I barely had any queer representation growing up, let alone kind of any kind of alternative relationship styles. Like, I didn't even know that like gay people existed until I went to a summer camp in America when I was 13. And so, and it wasn't until I came to the UK and was able to just like be independent, away from my parents, could you really kind of experience a different culture, etc., that like I could really get in touch with just kind of my feelings and beliefs on relationships and sexuality. So basically the short answer is, like growing up in Hong Kong, I had no exposure to that kind of thing at all. And I just kind of came into it on my own. And I think I actually came up with the word open relationship to describe like my arrangement back when I was 17 without knowing that it was already a thing.
Right.
And it wasn't until later, like when I realized that this was actually common vernacular and that like, there were tons of also like other people who were doing the same kind of thing that I was doing, and they were also calling it open relationships. So yeah, I don't really know where I came across the word polyamory, but I think that must have just seeped into kind of my subconscious at some point. That's kind of my journey with it. It was all very, very sudden in the last kind of 6 years or so.
Yeah. I was curious too, back when your first boyfriend cheated on you with the other guys. So you said like that relationship didn't last very long after that point. Did you two try to open up the relationship as a way to move forward together? Or was it sort of like the impact of him cheating on you and lying to you was too much for you to be able to overcome? Because it sounds like you didn't have a problem with the physical act. It was more the behind of the cheating and the lying.
I think I was actually like ready to forgive him and try and kind of work on it at the time. But then I think he was actually the one who held back because he saw how much he had hurt me. Because like I was devastated. It would have been different if it was just like a one-time thing. But then the fact that he'd consistently lied to me for 3 months and like I had no idea. And I'm pretty sure like there were some people in my school who knew before I did. I think that was the thing that really hurt. And obviously that was also really embarrassing for me. And, but like, I really loved him. I tried to kind of get over it, but I think he saw how much he'd hurt me and he was so consumed by guilt, that he made it very difficult for us to kind of work on the relationship. Cause I think he would look at me and remember what he'd done.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's interesting because you were willing to make it, you were willing to move forward with it, but between the two of you, it was difficult to get past the emotional piece behind it. And it wasn't just on your end, it was also on his end with the guilt. So I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like we were pretty young at the time. We probably like just had so many feelings about various things anyway. I think it would have been like a tough one to move through. But yeah, like I think, his guilt and kind of my hurt overall just kind of made it really, really difficult for both of us. But, we moved, well, like, I don't know where he's at now, but I've moved on to bigger, better things. So I think it all worked out. I think it all worked out in the end.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. Well, and thank you for sharing that. I just thought that was interesting because like you said, it wasn't the physical act that, or acts that were the problem. It was everything behind it.
Right.
And that it, you know, didn't deter you from actively seeking that out as you move forward.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that, you know, in your next relationship, you said that you were okay with like your partner going out and doing whatever because they were at university, and you didn't seem like you were feeling very hesitant about that. Do you remember feeling, I guess, you said you're not a jealous person, but do you remember feeling any jealousy or any of those emotions around being unsure about opening up this second relationship?
Actually, no, maybe I don't know if I was naive, but like I've always just put a lot of trust in my partner. And I've always kind of, well, you know, these experiences of what they've taught me is that like trust and honesty are more important than monogamy. And I guess it just didn't make any sense to me to like hold back and deny like feelings that are completely natural. And, you know, if like, as long as you talk to your partner about it, I don't see why you can't act on them. And so, you know, like the fact that me and my second partner had kind of made the agreement, talked things through, and, you know, I held him to his word, like that gave me enough comfort. So I think the transition was just very logical for me. Whereas for him, I think like he struggled more with like, kind of self-worth issues and like kind of insecurity about like, you know, what if I leave him, like if I find someone better, etc., etc. And yeah, I think it's an interesting one. I think like I grew up in, you know, I had a pretty happy childhood. I was always surrounded and by like very like loving people, and I think that having that emotional support throughout my life like gave me the confidence to kind of see my own value and worth as a partner. I always believed that like, you know, I had something unique that you know, like that really no one could compare to. Like that no one could make comparisons with, because I think, you know, we're all unique people, and someone can't be better than you at being you. So yeah, like I think that was just something that I've always believed throughout my life, and I carried that into my relationships, and that kind of gave me like the confidence and security to like open up without like really any problems at all.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like basically, you know, as long as someone is willing to be honest with me and to communicate with me, that's basically enough for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's amazing that you have come to that like feeling too, because I think for so many people out there, you know, us included, that self-confidence and seeing yourself in that light is what we're all striving for all the time. So thank you for sharing. It was very well said.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, you know, I was curious on the, maybe not the logistics, but like, I guess kind of, because we haven't had too many people on the show who are as young as you are. And so I think like if there's somebody out there listening who is roughly your age, thinking to themselves like, well, okay, so I'm interested in doing this. My partner just went off to university and I'm still in high school. It sounds like that was sort of the case. How was it like received by people that you were interested in? Like you wanted to start exploring this with other people, but like, I assume you're communicating openly, like, hey, I have a boyfriend and he's at college, but I'm able to do this. Like, how did those conversations go when you're sort of in this radical position for somebody at your age?
I actually think that, well, way back then, especially like, I think, yeah, like for some of my age when like not many other people my age were kind of doing open relationships and that kind of thing. I think a lot of people just didn't like take my relationship that seriously, so it wasn't like an issue. I think particularly with men. So for context, like I now date both men and women. I came out like when I was at university, but like when I was still only dating men and hadn't realized this yet, the men I spoke to like never really saw it as a problem. They're like, oh, you know, like as long as like some guy isn't going to come up and punch me after I like get with you, like I don't really care, basically. That's kind of just been a trend like throughout, you know, like even now, like, you know, like the people I speak to for the most part don't care. Whereas my current partner who is male, I think he has struggled with it a lot more, kind of talking to other people about it. Because so he dates women, and women tend not to believe him. Women tend to think that he's cheating, or that like, he's kind of playing down like how chill I am with the whole thing, or just, they're more likely to not trust him, which is entirely fair. I think, women are right to be kind of more cautious of men than the other way around. But yeah, for me, it's not really been an issue at all. People have either not taken it seriously or like they don't care, because like they just take my word for it. And I guess, like they're just happy to do stuff with me. So like they don't care about the details. Whereas I think for my male partners, it's been a much tougher time speaking to kind of other people about our relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes total sense. And I don't want to like stereotype that all guys just care about getting with people, but like I think we've heard similar things in the past that like the men seem to not have as much of a problem as the women do, and I think that's trust, that's safety, I think there's so many like things that go into that it's hard to really just stereotype, but it is a trend we've seen for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like these stereotypes come from somewhere, right? And I think that like the way kind of society has socialized us, like that definitely is a factor. And like all these narratives about like, if a guy sleeps with someone who is sleeps with a woman who is partnered, then he's seen as like superior like to like the male partner of the woman he's with. He's like the bull, right? That's the kind of the stereotype, that's the archetype rather. Whereas like if a woman sleeps with a man who is partner to another woman, she is the homewrecker, she is the other woman, and that's like got a much more kind of negative connotation attached to it. And I think like these kind of societal scripts really affect how people conduct themselves in relationships. And I think like the kind of focus on gender, like as much as we don't want to stereotype, but we can't deny that these things are real and they do exist and they do influence the way that we act and think about other people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for saying all that.
And I was curious, you said you're with a partner now. Did your partner, did they have previous experience in non-monogamy, or were they walking into this relationship with you as like new to non-monogamy as well? And how has that morphed, I guess, over the last 2 years? Has your relationship dynamic changed?
Yeah, so this is a very interesting story. So basically, in terms of his relationship history, he had a similar kind of, he was basically in the exact same situation as me. His partner was off at university. Well, actually, they were both going to university together, but in different places. And they went long distance and decided to open up, except she actually ended up cheating on him. She like met a guy over there and then like didn't tell him that she was already in a relationship, got with him, and then dumped my now boyfriend like over Facebook. And it was horrible. It was really, really horrible. And like, he's like, I've heard this story so many times now, but like it still makes me emotional, like thinking about like how like you could just do that to someone. And so that didn't go well for him, but that was kind of his first taste of non-monogamy. And so I think that was something that like he wanted to try out, but then he just didn't have like the right partner to do it with. And so when we met, the way we met is actually very interesting. So the PG version that we tell to family and friends is we met through a friend, right?
Yeah.
So the R-rated version is that we met through a friend to have a threesome.
Yep. It's not a lie. You did meet through a friend. There was a friend there.
Yeah. So like it's pretty interesting. So basically, like there was a girl that I knew who like was at my college, and she and I had like. We had similar tastes in people, basically. It was something that we discovered. Like, we got chatting, and then we realized that, like, on Tinder, we were matching with the same people, or we were sleeping with the same people. And, there was just, like, a very consistent trend going on. And we basically just set up an arrangement where basically we were like, instead of just wasting so much time, like, going on dates and, like, 2/3 of them, like, not going well, how about we just, like, tell each other about, like, how about we just, like, vet these people? If you've matched with someone, ask me if I've gone on a date with them, and I can tell you whether like they were a good time or not. and we can just help each other out, basically. This was like, when we're both single, and we were both just like, whatever, like, well, let's just like have fun. And have as much fun as possible. And so we were just like recommending people to each other, and one of her first recommendations to me was my current partner, because like, she was seeing a couple of guys at the time, and she was like, oh yeah, like he's really good fun, and I think like you'd really like his vibe. And so I went on a date with him, and she was right. And then kind of the next, because like I'm bi and she's bi, and we both got along as people, like the next kind of conclusion was like, oh, like let's have a threesome. And so we did, and like, it was my current partner's first threesome, and it was not my first threesome nor her first threesome, but yeah, like we all had a really good time. And since then it's just been a wild one. And I think the transition to non-monogamy was especially smooth because me and my current partner, we started out as kind of casual friends with benefits, and so we really got along. We kind of slept together for a very long time, and then eventually kind of feelings kind of developed and like escalated like over like months. And then when we made it, I guess, official, we were just kind of like, well, we've been having so much fun together, like meeting other people, going to like sex parties together, that type of thing that was happening at our university. We're like, why stop that? We're in love, and we're dating each other. Like, why ruin a good thing? So I guess we were just open from the beginning, and that was how we met, and we didn't see any need to change that. And so we're still together. He moved in with me in March when the lockdown started in the UK. We've been living together almost a year now, and like, we're very happy.
I was saying, you haven't killed each other yet.
No. We kind of give each other space to like, he like plays his video games, like I do my own thing. I run my blog, but then we also kind of like spend time together, but also spend time apart, like even when living together. Because like I think if we all spent all our time together 24/7, we definitely would have murdered each other. But it's actually been fine. And we've kind of watched so many relationships kind of fall apart around us, like over lockdown, either because they were like too close together, or that they were long distance and couldn't make it work. So I'm very glad that we've kind of survived it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely a huge relationship test for everyone.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Without a doubt. I was also like kind of back to like the age piece, and not to like focus on it too much, but like a lot of times we'll talk to people who are in their, 40s, 50s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and you're sort of a little more established in who you are as a person. And I feel like, in your late teens, early 20s, you're very transitional and transformative. You're like figuring out who you are. How, like, have you seen each of you sort of growing and changing over the last couple of years? Like, not just because of the non-monogamy and not just because you're together, but like just seeing each of you kind of grow into yourselves.
So I actually think I did most of my growing up when I was 16 or 17, which is a bit earlier than other people. Because when I was 16 and 17, that was the first time I was away from home. I got to like be independent and kind of start dating and things like that. And usually that's an experience that people get 2 years later when they start going to university. And as you've heard already, my first two relationships were quite turbulent. And I think I learned quite a lot from them. And I also like went through a phase at university, before I met my current partner, where, I was just single and like enjoying life and trying to, just enjoying like myself and not kind of placing like my worth like as like relating to like other people, etc. And like during that time, like I really invested kind of a lot of time into introspection and investigation of like my past relationships. I made lists. I really like looked into like the good and the bad of my past relationships and like what I learned from them, red flags to look out for, etc., etc. And I kind of took that knowledge and I took those experiences and like applied them to like any new people that I was meeting. And I think like that process has really helped me develop like the healthy relationships that I wanted today. Yeah,
no, that's an amazing point, and I think it makes a lot of sense. we sort of had that once we got to university. And that was actually part of the reason that we did open our relationship, is we didn't want to limit each other once we got into that environment that wasn't, high school.
Right. Well, and we also had a many-year background too together.
Mm-hmm.
So we had built that trust in each other. But I think hearing that you've kind of grown and had that confidence and sense of self from a pretty early age, I'm sure has helped allow you to be open, I guess, to these different relationship dynamics and be more comfortable in them, which is amazing to hear.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that, I've learned more about myself than anything else, like through just these, unconventional relationship styles, because you really have to be secure in yourself as a person, your worth as a person, because otherwise you're just constantly going to be making comparisons and putting yourself down, and instead of, just appreciating other people for how they are different from you, instead of just getting in your head about how they'll best you in some way.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And that can be so difficult.
Yeah, I have no idea how difficult that is.
Yeah. And I think other people take things so personally. I think, you see this very commonly when people open up a relationship. The first thing that people do is they take it personally. It's oh, why would you want to open the relationship if this must mean that I'm not enough. This must mean that there's either something wrong with you or there's something wrong with me. But usually people kind of turn it on to themselves and, criticize their partner for attacking them and attacking their worth, when really it's nothing to do with them. It's kind of just something that they want out of life, and it's not really anything to do with how good their partner is, or how not good their partner is. So yeah, and I think the main thing the main piece of advice that I give to people when they ask me about my relationships, which they do a lot because not a lot of people my age do this type of thing, is just kind of to not take things personally. If your partner or whoever brings up an issue with you, it's because they trust you, and they value your opinion enough to bring it up with you. And instead of just kind of viewing it as an attack on yourself, kind of appreciate them for being honest with you and trusting you enough to kind of disclose this kind of information.
Right, as the alternative of cheating, right? Or doing it behind your back, right?
Yeah. And that takes courage in itself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
So I have a question about, earlier in the interview, you mentioned sex parties at university, and I would love to know a little bit more about that, because I would say where I went to school, that was not a thing.
We both went there, and we figured they either weren't happening or we just weren't invited. So
that's true. They could have been happening, and we just weren't invited.
I think it's a very specific scene that you get into, and I think this definitely doesn't happen at every university, but at my university, it's it's basically a very high stress environment, and then people are just massive hedonists. And so yeah, so basically, I kind of fell into it by accident. I mean, I was already just organizing threesomes and that type of thing on my own, because I was seeing a lot of people on Tinder, and what I would do is I'd meet some people, and then I'd be like, oh, I'm also seeing this other person who you might be interested in. Oh, would you like to meet them? They'd be like, yeah, sure. Or if not, no worries. But I kind of set up the people that I'm seeing with each other, and then if they get along, then the next logical conclusion is to just do something together. And yeah, that was the kind of thing that I was doing during kind of my single period, and also when I was casually seeing my current partner, and that was the kind of fun that we'd have all the time. We would date separately. Occasionally there'd be someone who was interested in both of us, and then we'd have some fun together, or I'd be just doing my own thing with other couples, or just finding two people who liked each other, etc. So I was already doing that, and then just kind of through that scene, I ended up meeting someone who liked to organize bigger parties. And it was entirely by accident. And she'd heard about me and heard about the stuff that I was doing. She was like, hey, I think you'd really enjoy this party that I'm organizing. You should come. And that's just kind of how I got into it. basically. And since then, I've organized like my own bigger parties as well, like among like kind of my friendship group, and it's all just quite chill. And I think it's a very unique culture at my university for sure. And yeah, I think people just want to blow off steam like when they've been working super hard, and like it's also quite like my university is also quite left wing, like as are most universities, to be fair. And yeah, like I think people are just, it's very sex positive, and like everyone's like very responsible with like the like having safer sex, and so we all have like an understanding, and so yeah, it's worked out pretty well. And yeah, we have a lot of fun.
Yeah. I was going to say, I'm going to interrupt Finn for one more second. You said that it must be either you got to meet the right people, or like you said, start organizing your own. So we just weren't organizing our own. That was the problem.
Yeah. There were many problems at our university that precluded us from this. We could have had a lot of male heavy orgies at our university. So if you're okay with that wild imbalance, then I think it would have been fine.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Not that I have a problem with that. I don't know how many people want to go to one that's like 47 guys and 3 women.
I know, right?
I'm sure there's probably people out there who would, and I don't think it would be a problem. I'm just like, that's a tougher sell
environment.
Yeah, it's a tougher sell to the crowd.
For sure.
Anyway, I interrupted you.
No, I think what I was curious was how do you organize these in such a way that you are able to keep yourself safe and everybody else there, like, as safe as possible, and feeling comfortable and being able to like have this dynamic that works without it being, scary, which, I guess, at times this type of thing could be scary to somebody who's never done it before.
Yeah, for sure. Like I get asked this a lot. And actually, on my personal blog, which I will talk about in a bit, I actually did a live stream with someone else where we answered questions about like attending and organizing orgies and orgy etiquette. So I'll talk about this later, but if you want to check it out, that's like where I'm like really elaborate on that point. But, to answer your question right now, I think like in terms of creating a safe environment, I think it's really important to first like vet everyone. I generally keep my parties quite small. By small, anywhere between like 6 and 15. I think 15 is like the biggest one that I've personally organized. And all the people who are going are either people I personally know or are friends of the people I know who they will vouch for. So I wouldn't just kind of let any random person who says they're interested to come. They need to be either approved by me or by someone who I trust. And I think like that definitely is one thing. And in terms of having safer sex, like obviously I'm not going to ask everyone to produce like recent kind of like STI reports or anything. Like I feel some people do that. I personally feel it's a bit invasive, but basically, I just ask everyone to be sensible and I provide like at the parties, like everyone brings like condoms, dental dams, gloves, like whatever they need. And everyone like has like the safe with like the safe sex that's like comfortable with them. But yeah, like, and also in terms of just personal safety rather than sexual safety, we always have a conversation about consent. Usually like if I'm having smaller gatherings with like just my friends, like they're all pretty solid people. I don't need to talk to them about like, don't be an asshole, don't touch people if they don't want you to touch them, etc. But then with like larger groups, there's usually a thing at the beginning where like we'll be like, hey, this is like here are the rules. At some of the parties that I've attended, like with like larger groups, there usually is a universal safe word. And I found that to be really useful, basically, because like that, like setting that out at the beginning, having a conversation at the beginning means that like everyone has that at the back of their minds, like whatever they're doing. And there is the understanding that, if you break any of these rules, or like if someone says even like if it's heard down the grapevine that like someone said something dodgy about you, you're immediately blacklisted. So it's very strict at the parties that I've attended, and like and I try to curate that in my own parties as well, because yeah, like it's a very vulnerable environment, and it's also very overwhelming for a lot of people. And the bigger the group is, the harder it is to control. So yeah, that would be kind of just my general tips. Like, have universal safe words, have like a consent kind of discussion at the beginning, vet people, have people vouch for other people. So if someone like comes into the party and causes trouble, you can be like, who let that person in here? Who is responsible for them? And kind of talk to them about like, their vetting process.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like that's my general tips. Like, and I've been doing this like for, over the course of my degree. So, over like 3 years, obviously obviously like not during the pandemic, but yeah, before.
That's an important clarification.
Yeah. And I think too, just for people, and thank you for like kind of going into the weeds a little bit on it, because I think, you hear, oh, Leanne hosted sex parties at university, and you have this vision of like, you like stapling flyers up in the,
in the common areas,
like sex party at 8 p.m. tonight, bring anybody you want. And I think the understanding that it's like, not usually 6 to 15 fairly close knit people who are, well vetted and continuing to vet each other and weed each other out. Like, I think that really helps paint a much better picture than what you might see in like the movies. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. It's just so, and also like people have so many misconceptions about what sex parties are like. Honestly, I think that sex parties are just like any other house party, except that the sexual component is just, a bit more emphasized than usual. But, it's not just a pile of bodies that everyone falls into it from the beginning and just continues throughout the night. It's like, it's like a regular party, people mingle, and then people go off and, do stuff. And, it really is like a way more chill than most people think it is. And no one is obligated to have sex with anyone at the party if they don't want to. I mean, I've been to orgies where, like there have been people who are just there to like, watch other people, soak in the atmosphere. They don't even take their clothes off. And I've met monogamous couples at orgies who don't participate in any sex with other people, but they just like to have sex with each other while other people are having sex around them. There's all kinds of things that you can do at an orgy. It's just like whatever you're comfortable with, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you so much for like spelling that out very clearly, because I think, like Finn said, there's a lot of misconceptions out there.
Yeah, people get the view or the vision. The story they tell themselves, right, is you walk in the door and everyone's just immediately going to town, and that's just not the reality. So
no, absolutely not. Yeah, and I think if I really was like putting up flyers and stuff, like imagine the kind of atmosphere that would be.
Right. Yeah.
Most people don't know how to conduct themselves with regular one-on-one sex. Like, how can you expect them to know how to conduct themselves like in a larger group setting? Like when especially when people are like usually getting intoxicated as well, like that's another dimension that comes into it. So yeah, you have to be extra careful. Like if you're already careful with like one-on-one, you have to be even more careful in a group situation, because when there's other people, like there's much more kind of confusion, like in a group about like initiating things, like doing a new sex act, etc. You have to be very, very clear with every step of the way whether the person or people that you're engaging with are okay with it. And that's why it's important to kind of vet the people. And like I've attended parties at university that have been like way bigger than the ones I've organized. So I said the biggest one I organized was 15 people. But I think the best one that I attended, I didn't organize, had about like 80 to 100.
Whoa.
Yeah, and that was wild. But then I think it's about finding like the right type of people and finding like the community. And I think usually if like listeners are wondering like, oh, how do I find my people? Like, how do I get into this scene? I would say find like sex positive spaces, and especially queer spaces, because I think that the queer community, they're already unconventional in one way, so then they kind of just lean into it basically and do other things that are also unconventional. And so I think that the vast majority of the people I've seen who are like into this sort of thing have also happened to be queer. Like what you guys said earlier about if you guys organize an orgy, it'd be like 47 guys and 3 women. I think like a tip that like people don't talk about very often is I personally think that an orgy is best if it is around 2/3 women, or 2/3 women, or like non-binary like femmes, like just non-men.
Right.
And this is for several reasons. I think it's like for like safety of like the women who are attending, because I think it can often be a very overwhelming atmosphere. I think that overall, like having more women there encourages more kind of sex that like that isn't focused on penetration. And I think, people are more likely to slow down, explore like different types of sex that aren't just, P and V, and just generally like have more fun overall. And thirdly, I have also found that like, where orgies where, there have been like 2/3 non-men, people who have penises, they tend to malfunction less.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something that I've noticed in like my time like at sex parties.
Yeah, I guess that makes perfect sense, right? If you have 50 holes and 50 pegs, you feel like you have every single peg has to be ready to go. So that makes that's actually, I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, makes sense.
And I think just thank you for sharing all of that. And I did want to say one thing though, like, you said like your biggest one you were at was 80 people. And I think that could sound crazy, but also when you think about it, like that's really not any different than if you were to go to like a swing club and there's 80 or 100 people there. The only difference is like, these are all people that are your peers rather than random people coming together who found it on the internet. So I think it's actually less crazy to me than going to a swing club, in your hometown or whatever. So
yeah, that actually wasn't the biggest one I attended. That was the most fun I've had at a party, a big party. But like, the biggest one I've attended actually had of closer to 300, and that was too much. Which is why, like, I talked about vetting at the very, very beginning. I think that that party like that had that many people was not well vetted. Because I think at some point they were just trying to get people to buy tickets.
Yeah.
And like they let some people in who were not so good at consent. Nothing happened to me. I'm just saying like that the atmosphere was like very different.
Yeah.
And I think also like a lot of people didn't know what they were doing and they would just kind of sit around and like ogle other people, which was very uncomfortable. I think like a thing I think something that people don't think about at orgies is like, just because people are having sex like openly doesn't mean that they want someone to just sit there and watch them.
Yep.
And I think like if you're gonna go to a party and like, watch other people, if you're gonna be close enough for them to notice you, I think it's polite to just be like, hi, like, you guys look like having fun time. Like, can I like sit and watch you guys? Rather than just kind of sit there and be a creep. I think that's something that people don't think about very often because they think, oh, these people are like just like having sex like so openly, like they must be fine with people just sitting and like getting off to them. And it's not, it isn't necessarily that like people like the atmosphere. They don't necessarily like being watched and focused on.
Yeah, right. No, for sure. I wanted to maybe change the subject just slightly, getting a little closer to wrapping up. And we want to give you time to talk about your blog because it sounds like it's an excellent resource. We've taken a look and we know it is. And also back to, you talked about your live stream. Is there we can get a link for that, right? That we can put in the show notes for everybody? Or
Yeah.
Okay.
There is.
Perfect. Yeah. We will make sure to include that. I just wanted to say that here. It sounds like, so your current sort of dynamic is you have your more serious primary or anchor partner, and then more casual connections outside of that. It also sounded like you said you were kind of just open to whatever. Is there sort of the feeling that like if you or your partner were to develop like deeper feelings that you would kind of go into like the more, polyamorous, having like 2 or 3 like deeper loving relationships at the same time? Or is that sort of not where you're feeling it right now?
I think like the main constraint for us both has been time and also obviously the pandemic. We've both got our own personal projects and that kind of thing. And, neither of us need multiple romantic partners. So it's not something that we're actively looking for, but it's also not something that we would deny if the opportunity came up.
Yep.
I have not yet had the experience of having 2 or more serious relationships at once, but my partner has. Okay. Because while we were dating, he had another girlfriend. For about 6 months or so. And that was fine. And that's something that like he was comfortable with, but equally he didn't like need it. So basically where we're at is, yes, we're anchor partners. But then, we're very open to just like having things change and, renegotiate whenever needed. And mostly we seek out casual connections. I think both of us, like the way we've kind of worked with like dating is we usually, with meeting new people, we start out casual, and then if the sexual chemistry is good, and then we keep seeing each other, like over time, like feelings develop. I think for both of us, it takes time for feelings to develop. So I guess you can say like we're like both kind of demi-romantic, like in a sense. And so, yeah, like basically it's, it took me ages to find him. So I imagine it'll take me some time to find someone else. And yeah, we're just open to like whatever comes. And, I've had met him all in the past. I was fine with it. And yeah, so yeah, that's where we're at right now. We're in no rush. Basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that.
I was also curious, how open with family and friends, I guess probably with lots of friends, but like, are you about being non-monogamous?
So my family know, but they don't want to hear about it.
Okay. So yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Yeah. They mostly think it's like a sex thing, which to be fair, currently it is. So I don't feel the need to kind of like really like talk to them about it at length. I think, that a conversation will be had, like if I do develop like another serious relationship. And that will be an interesting time. But like for the moment, my parents kind of ignore the fact that like they ignore the fact that I'm bi, they ignore the fact that I'm poly, they ignore the fact that like I'm like very like sexually active and I guess promiscuous. They try not to think about it, especially because I grew up in Hong Kong, I grew up in conservative Asian country. I am Asian, and so that's been a difficult kind of cultural disconnect as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think, and I don't think it's uncommon for people when it is just a sexual thing. Like we don't go around telling our parents and family about the sex we're having with our, partners, our husbands and wives, typically. So like it doesn't necessarily make sense to like go into detail. Like you said, they know about it and they don't want to hear about it. I think, where we kind of got to was if there was some other person or other people that were really important in our lives, at that point, we would want to clue them in and not hide these other people if possible. And that was sort of for us where we kind of came to it is like, well, when it's just sex stuff, like they don't need to know, because that's a little bizarre, but when there's somebody that's meaningful, like we don't want to hide that person either.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm completely with you there. I think that's probably the approach I'm going to take in future if like, something more develops like between me and someone else.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And of course, I'm very open with my friends. Like,
it sounds like it if you're comparing guys on Tinder to take home. So.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate to be surrounded by a very supportive group of people who are all very, I guess, liberal and just open-minded. So, like, so I do have monogamous friends. But like they are cool with it, and they are fun, so it's all good.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's awesome.
It's amazing that you have such a fantastic support system and network of people to be around.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
So maybe kind of like the last question that we like to ask, and it sounds like you've had a fair share of experiences. We love to hear bloopers just because they're fun and partly because sex doesn't always go great or relationships don't always go great, and it kind of helps people understand that like even the pros maybe don't nail it every time. And if you're willing to share 1 or 5, that would be wonderful.
Oh my gosh, yeah, no, so many. Oh my god, I could go on. Yeah. Okay. So, these are all just various things that have happened at kind of sex parties in the past and various kind of group sex situations. Because usually, like, a lot of people are just kind of there to have fun and don't really know what they're doing. I think like one that was just funny was like a foursome that my partner and I had with another couple. And yeah, these are like old friends of ours, and we swing now and then. And basically one time, after like the sex itself was fine. It was great. We had a great time. And it was afterwards when we were all kind of picking our clothes up off the floor, that my partner and like the other guy like picked up their underwear and at the same time realized that they both had the same underwear. And then they just there was exactly the same like black next boxes, and they just picked them up at the same time, looked at each other, and they were like, "Oh no!" And it was kind of like that. Do you know that Spider-Man meme? Do you know that meme where like the two Spider-Men are like pointing at each other with like finger guns? Like it was like. Yeah, it was exactly like that meme. Like, if you know, you know, and like it was like that, like with the boxes, and they were like, "Oh my god!" No, but fortunately, they discovered that like the other guys was like a one size bigger than my partner, so like it was fine. Like they just checked the label, and they were like, "Okay, it's chill." Like, you know, we know whose is whose. Like, that's just something that like happened. Yeah, and that was really funny. And then I guess with other stories have been like, oh my god, oh yeah, I once had a like basically like before one of the like the bigger sex parties that I was going to, you know, my like the person who invited me was like, oh yeah, no, you can bring your friends, you can like have some +1s, +2s, like whatever, and I decided to bring like, you know, the people that I was like sleeping with at the time, which was like a group of like 5 or 6 people, and the day before the big sex party, we had a smaller sex party of our own, because basically my idea was like, oh, we should all get to know each other because, you know, we'll be going as a group and we should have fun. And we went to a like the night before the big orgy, we went to a party in my college, like a regular party, like a regular normal non-sexy dance party. And, you know, we all like danced together as a group, and then, you know, obviously like later on in the night we were all like making out with each other like in front of like everyone else in my college. And basically, like, you know, all like I was completely sober. I was completely sober throughout that whole thing. And obviously, like, end of the night, it was fun. Like, you know, went back to my place, all good. But the next morning, there were so many rumors going around at my university because, like, people were like, did you see that, like, Leanne was making out with, like, 5 different people last night? Like, how much did she have to drink? And then I was just, like, you know, people came to me and asked me about it. They were like, yeah, so, like, you were, like, super messy last night. And I was like, no, I was completely sober. Like, these were my friends. Everyone was just so shocked. And, you know, because they were like, oh my gosh, like, why would you, like, you know, they were like, okay, then, like, I think everyone was just really confused, like, seeing, like, us as a group, like, all just, like, taking turns, like, making out with each other. And that just wasn't something that we were thinking about at the time, because, like, in my friendship group, that's, like, fairly normal. But yeah, like, when we just kind of brought that out to, like, the wider kind of, like, culture at my university, everyone was like, what is going on with these people? Yeah, so, like, that's a funny one. And oh god, I don't know, like, just so many random things have happened, like.
Well, what we'll have to do, we had a guest from a couple of months ago who hosted and organized, like, the orgy club at Yale back when he was going there. And what we should do is get the two of you on a panel, and you can compare
stories.
University orgy stories, because I imagine that would be a wild baton handoff back and forth.
Oh my god, yeah, that would be incredible. Like, I'm 100% down for that.
All right,
we'll have to try to make it happen.
We will have to try to organize that.
Yes,
that would be super fun.
I'm so down for that.
Amazing.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all those stories. Yeah, it's awesome. And before we let you go, we would love to give you the opportunity to plug your blog. What is it? Where can people find it? Of course, we'll have mentioned it at the beginning of this episode as well, but we wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about it as well.
Sure. So I started a blog last November. It's called Polyphilia, and it's on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And you can find it on all of those platforms at the same username, which is Polyphilia Blog, POLYPHILIABLOG. And I started in November, but it's basically ballooned. I'm almost at 10K followers on Facebook. I gained 300 new followers today on Instagram. You know, I'm like over 6,000 there. And basically what I do is I post memes every day. I post memes related to polyamory, ethical non-monogamy, and basically just personal growth in open relationships. And yeah, I post a new meme every day, and lots of kind of educational posts and tweets as well. So yeah, please follow me there.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's amazing. And thank you for doing that, and for embarrassing our Instagram following. We appreciate it. We've been doing it for almost 3 years, and we're nowhere near that. So maybe we need to step our damn game up.
Memes are the way to go. Just share memes.
Yeah.
Like it was originally started out as just like a regular blog, but then I started posting memes and suddenly my reach was like hundreds of thousands of people. So that is the way to go. That is the secret.
So memes are the way to go. Okay.
Yep, but now we've got competition.
It's not competition.
No,
it's all
not.
to support each other. It's just niche community anyway.
I'm well aware. I'm well aware. All right. Well, thank you so much, Leanne, for reaching out, for coming on, for sharing such an amazing story. And I think, I don't know, it's just fun to see and to hear that like people in their early 20s and late teens are being much more open-minded. Like, and it's not just you, right? Obviously you're at parties with, up to hundreds of other people. So like, you're not alone in this. Mm-hmm. And I think that's encouraging to see, that coming down. So
yeah, it's huge.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you too. I'm really, really, really glad to have, appeared on this podcast with you guys. It's been a great time.
Awesome. Well, have a wonderful, I guess, night on your end, and we will, we'll be in touch.
Yeah. Thanks again.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And we're back. Thank you so much, Leanne, for reaching out and coming on the show and sharing your amazing story. We had such a fun time talking to you.
Yeah, I was just going to give a couple of quick updates on things we talked about. She mentioned a live stream she did with somebody else about creating safe environments for sex parties. I have those links. Those links are in the show notes. We told you how to find them in the intro, but they're at normalizingnonmonogamy.com, and click on the podcast tab. The other thing was we talked about a roundtable discussion with her and Zach, and that is going to happen. We haven't scheduled the date yet, but it is going to happen. And we're pulling in somebody else who took over the Yale Orgy Club from Zach. Yeah, the Yale one from Zach. Sorry. After, why do these cars keep driving by while I'm talking? And then I'm like a dog, like squirrel. Anyway. So there will be a roundtable discussion with Leanne, Zach, and actually someone who took over working or organizing the Yale Orgy Club after Zach left more recently. So a fantastic discussion we're going to have on that. And we'll keep you posted on when that's happening. We just thought it would be fun to let you know that it is actually happening. We weren't just blowing smoke.
Yes. We're super, super excited for that. The other quick thing we wanted to mention is that we know that people are getting out and able to meet other people more frequently now, especially with the vaccine rolling out. And it's really exciting. So our favorite way to get tested for STIs is to use stdcheck.com, and we'd love for you to check it out as well. If you use the links on our website, you can get a discount, and it's only $139.
I think it's only $129.
Oh, right. With the discount. You're right.
I'm always right. Thank you. It's on recording again.
It's $139 normally. You get a $10 discount for using the links on our page, and it supports the show. It's an affiliate link. So thank you for doing that. It's a super simple process, and it's very private. You don't have to go and have any awkward conversations with anyone.
Yeah, and I was just going to maybe say Emma assumed just because you got vaccinated, you're going to start going and having sex with people. That was an abrupt segue, but you know what? We're going to just assume that's what's happening. So get your vaccine.
Which I don't know if I should recommend that or not. I don't know, but I just assume.
No, it's fine. No judgment. But the steps are get your vaccine, get tested for STIs, and then you're ready to rock and roll.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
We'll see everybody next week. We've got a fan. Oh, we don't have an interview. Are we taking a week off?
We do have an interview, but I was going to say, don't forget, go sign up for our meet and greet April 17th on our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com. You can also contact us there. As we always say, we'd love to check it out, have you check it out. And
tonight is the Patreon call. So patrons, if you're still listening, we'll see you tonight.
Yes.
Next week,
we do have an interview with Bella and Jace.
I thought we were going to take a week off.
Nope.
All right. Next week.
That doesn't happen.
Bella and Jace. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. We'll see everybody in a week.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.